Welcome to episode 163 of the Thunder Underground podcast. This is a very special episode.
Of course.
Brought to you by Johnson & Johnson Baby Shampoo.
Okay.
I don't know where that came from.
We finally got a sponsor.
Yeah. But now we say this is a special episode because this is the first, what's the right word? Throwback, or we're re-releasing something.
Yes.
This is like a remastered. I didn't actually remaster the audio, so it's not. But
it's a remix. No, it's not a remix. Is it a supplemental? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but
it's just a re-release.
A re-release. I like it.
We're going to call this Podcast Days Revisited.
This one should be.
That would work. And speaking of Metallica, here in this next month, they're re-releasing Garage Days Revisited.
They
the
are.
Original 598 EP.
I ordered the picture disc. What?
Hell yeah. And you remember when we talked about that a few weeks ago? And you know, I said that's cool that they're doing the CD in the box, and you said the tape and all that. Like, after that, I went and got online to order that CD in the box, and it was sold out.
Sold out. Yeah.
So I missed my damn chance.
I'm glad you tried, though.
Yeah. But the reason we're here is re-releasing this stuff because the Every Album in a Row series thing that we've been doing.
Yes.
We always release directly to YouTube as a special thing.
Yeah.
And now we thought, well, it's been long enough that we need to put these up on all the other sites so the people that aren't checking out YouTube can hear this stuff as well.
Definitely.
And Metallica was the first one we did, and it's been a year and a month ago because we did it at the end of February. And the idea came about when I remember you messaged me and said, hey, I'm listening to Metallica's entire catalog right now from start to finish. Yeah. And
you
a couple hours later, I was like, hey, what if I did that? And then we just talked about it.
Yes.
Even though we've heard all these albums 20,000 times, you thought, well, how often do you ever listen to a band's entire catalog?
Exactly.
In order from start to finish without listening to other stuff. And once we got done, we sat down and we actually did this one on the YouTube live thing, so it doesn't sound as good as some of these other ones coming later.
Yeah. And it was our first attempt at this, so.
Yeah. So, let us know what you think.
But, yeah, I mean, Metallica is my favorite band of all time.
Yeah.
I'm a complete nerd for them. They do no wrong in my eyes, except for St. Anger. But anyways.
The other thing was this was only, when I just look back, this is only 39 minutes. And then we did ones later with, like, Pantera had, like, 5 or 6 albums, and it was, like, an hour, and then I think, and then, of course, the Kiss one with CJ was almost 2 hours.
Yes.
So it's like, as we got more into this, we realized, I think we might have just did the Metallica thing and thought, well, there's all these albums, we just kind of rushed through it, maybe, or find out here when we re-listen, but, yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. So basically, it just starts with Kill 'Em All and goes up to Hardwired. And back when this came out, what was that? December, January. Hardwired had only been out 3 months.
Yes.
When we recorded this. So that's something maybe we could mention right now. 3 months for an average person listening to Hardwired means you might have listened to it 10 times or something. But 3 months for you means you listen to it 90 times because that's 90 days.
Exactly. I literally listen to it every day.
So you had a good understanding of this album.
Yes.
But the question is, now we're a full year and 4 months removed from that album coming out. So is there anything, now that you listen to it and do you love it more? Do you rank it higher than you did? I mean, I don't know. I think when we talked,
I can't remember. Yeah,
we both had it
in,
I think we both had it as like probably the 6th best album behind the first 5.
Yeah. Oh,
obviously.
Definitely.
This might piss you off and piss some other people off. I might bump it now above Kill 'Em All on my list. I know Kill 'Em All is number 1 on your list, but Kill 'Em All is number 5 on my list.
I don't know that we can be friends anymore, Trent. Just kidding.
Because the Metallica that, Master Puppets is my favorite album.
Yes.
And then Ride the Lightning. The Metallica I love is the big, huge, fucking epic, grandiose.
Exactly. No, I understand.
Thrash metal that crossed into the epic stuff. Where Kill 'Em All is great, but it's just straight, just like...
It's straight up. We're trying to be a new wave of British heavy metal band.
Yeah.
They're just cutting their teeth. And I get that, But Kill 'Em All is still my favorite just because I love the rawness of it.
Yeah.
I really love when bands do that, it just... Anyways, but I still love Hardwired. I think it's a great fucking record. I think that a lot of the songs came off great live when we saw them.
Yeah.
And nothing's really changed. I still love it, and I still think it's a bombastic album. So, there you go.
And it's the first hashtag I'll Kill Her No Filler album since the Black album.
Yeah.
Because,
yeah.
I mean, I know how much you love Load. I like, there's stuff on Load and Reload I like, but there's also stuff I don't care about. So,
yeah, like Thorn Within.
Yeah.
Anyways.
But yeah, both those albums, and then obviously Saint Anger, and then even Death Magnetic, is good. We like it, but it's not near the level that Hardwired is.
I know.
So this is the first album that is 100% solid, just like everything Black Album previous.
That's right.
So, and other things in Metallica news since we did this episode was the Metal Up Your Podcast guys. Actually debuted around that time.
Yeah.
I think it was January that year.
Yeah.
And you had found them sometime last year, really got into it, and then I started listening. And
love that podcast. Those guys are smart dudes. It's a really cool show to listen to.
Yeah, if you're a Metallica fan, like a big fan, it's endless, because it's like you think, how could you keep making a podcast about a single band? But there's millions of topics. If
there's
you just
so
do
many...
a full episode on one album, then a full episode on, a DVD release, and then just on a specific member and specific songs.
They did an episode of the Icon thing on MTV.
Right.
I mean, there's so many places you can go.
Yeah.
And I mean, this podcast is like what Black Sabbath is to metal. This is like a music podcast of all music podcasts. So Metal Up Your Podcast, they're great. Check them out.
Yeah.
And Alpha Metallica is awesome too.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, what Tom from Alpha Metallica does is he's basically going through every single Metallica song, kind of like what we did here, but he's doing them in alphabetical order.
Alphabetical order, yeah.
And each episode is dedicated to just one song, and so it's a project that's going to take him 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, and then I think didn't he do that before with Tom Waits?
Yes,
and then so there's a big difference in styles there, and then so maybe once this is done, he could go in a totally different direction too. You never know.
Well, I think, and this is true for Metal Up Your Podcast too. These guys aren't just metalheads; they love everything.
Yeah,
they're musicians, and that slant, and like Clint and Ethan from Metal Up Your Podcast, they're professional touring musicians. So that slant gives them a really good viewpoint on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
and there's another one called Speak and
Destroy. Yeah. That's Ryan J. Downey. He also has another podcast called No Prize from God, which is awesome. I just started listening to. But Speak and Destroy, this guy he's a journalist in the rock world, and so he's got a lot of connections. So he has, he's had Rob Halford on, Dave Ellefson, Avenged Sevenfold, Rob Flynn, and they just talk about Metallica, and so that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's another good one.
So yeah, if you're a huge fan of Metallica, you got all kinds of stuff you could delve into.
Yeah. A million things you can listen to, and it's all good.
And speaking of Alpha Metallica,
yeah.
Both of us are scheduled here in the coming months to both be on there separately.
Yes.
You're going to record was it Hate Train?
Yeah, I'm going to do Hate Train.
And I'm going to do I Disappear.
Yeah, there we go.
So, and I think right now where's he at?
He's on the Fs.
Okay, so we're getting close to
Hate Train. We're getting close. I looked at it though, because he also does Lulu songs in there and stuff too.
Okay, right.
So there's still a good month and a half, 2 months before I'm up.
Okay.
And then there's a few songs between me and you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean that's going to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, definitely.
And like we mentioned, Metal Up Your Podcast, both Ethan and Clint have been on there as well separately, and I think they're even together now as well.
And they've gave us shout out.
That's right.
So, hell yeah.
Yeah. Well, like we mentioned, this was on YouTube. Currently, we did a Kiss every album in a row here just a few weeks ago.
Yes.
With CJ McClellan from Grind. And that was a really fun one. That was probably the biggest catalog we have done to this point.
That was quite an undertaking.
Yeah. That was really cool to go delve into that because there was a lot of the 80s stuff that I'd listened to, but never as much as I did the 70s stuff or the 90s stuff.
Yeah.
So it was cool to get back into that. And Kiss is one of those bands where there's huge changes.
Oh, definitely.
Metallica obviously had big changes in the 90s and all that, but Kiss did it several times.
Lots to talk about on that one.
But if you go on to YouTube right now, you can find the Kiss one here on the podcast episodes as well. But if you head to YouTube at Ethan Underground, We've got these up for Megadeth, Ozzy, Van Halen, Pantera, Guns N' Roses, and Motley Crue.
Yes.
I think that covered everybody. And kind of like we're doing here in the coming weeks and months, we'll be re-releasing all those as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we've got some new ones where we're going to work on too.
Yeah. We can mention it because I think we did on that one. The next one we're going to do is Alice in Chains.
Yes. I'm done listening. I took notes this time.
Wow.
From being embarrassed on the Kiss one by the amount of notes you and CJ had.
So the shortest,
and I had no notes and I forgot all the shit.
So the shortest discography we're doing, you took notes on?
I know, yeah.
Well, no, probably Pantera's probably shorter, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But hey, I learned my lesson, so I'll be
well, it's good that
well
you took
fucking
notes.
Prepared this time.
It's good that you took notes because who the fuck knows when I'm going to finish here?
Yeah, I know. So
no, like yesterday I listened to Facelift, and then right when it got into Sap, is when I had to stop. So
you just got started?
Yeah.
You dick. I'm gonna have to listen to this shit again.
You can't remember it all. It's not gonna be months. It's literally gonna be in a week.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah. But yeah, go check those out. But in the meantime, let's get into this. Here's our Metallica Every Album in a Row from February of 2017.
Start with the big one, and I guess just to explain that, I'll let Jason take over because you were just randomly doing this, and I said, "Hey, let's record a reaction video about it."
Well, my favorite band, we all know that. Anyways, I had just kind of decided to do this because, it's Metallica's the new record tour. They're on everybody's brain right now.
You're listening to Hardwired heavily.
Yeah, I'm listening to the new one heavily. I'm getting psyched up for this summer. Netflix just put some kind of monster on. They put.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, they put that on Netflix. Excuse me. And I watched it, again because I hadn't seen it in years. And so I just, we all have we all have our favorite band that we get stuck on. So I just was like, there's so much of the stuff I have not listened to in a while. And so I just said, I'm just going to start at the beginning and listen to each album. And, I didn't get into S&M or all the live stuff. I mean, I just studio albums, Garage Inc. I listened to the two new songs on S&M, which aren't new now, but they were new then, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I just went straight through to Hardwired. So that's in the middle of that, I was telling you about it. And that's when you had this idea. So Here we are.
So you started doing this midweek and whenever I think late week. And
because I'm just a geek. I'm a nerd. So that's what we do.
Yeah, when we started going back and forth about it, I said, hey, we should record a reaction. I guess it wouldn't make sense for me to just sit here and ask you questions about it. We could both do it. So I just started doing the same thing the other day.
Definitely.
We both did it on our own time. On Kill 'Em All and went clear to the end. Basically from hit the lights to spit out the bone. And
it's like I said, what do we leave out? What can we include? We kind of started texting back and forth about what's the rules here? So it was kind of a fun thing.
So basically you kind of already explained it, but when we do this with future bands too, every recording or like you pick the live ones that were never recorded in a studio, but they were newer songs. So if they have compilations out, you skip it unless it's a compilation of unreleased material or B-sides and stuff, kind of like we talked. If we do Megadeth, we would listen to Hidden Treasures.
Yes, exactly.
And, that kind of thing.
It's like you don't need to listen to the Ride the Lightning deluxe version with 22 different demos of For Whom the Bell Tolls. We don't have to do that.
And if we did Kiss, if we listen to the compilations, we would be here 8 weeks from now because it would take
just on compilations
7 weeks to get through the greatest hits albums.
And you'd hear 8 songs 100 times or whatever, So that's kind of how we came to this,
Which is another interesting tidbit that Metallica being one of the biggest bands in the world and they've never had a greatest hits album.
Well,
correct?
No, I don't know. I guess they just don't need to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's kind of cool.
The closest thing is that Through the Never soundtrack thing. So, and I did not listen to that because that's all just old material.
Right.
So, yeah.
Starting off, the thing is everybody knows all these albums.
Yes.
We know all these albums.
Yeah.
But like you said, there's a lot of stuff you haven't listened to in a long time. I frankly haven't listened to Kill 'Em All straight through. I've listened to tons of the songs here or there and playlist or whatever, but I've listened to the 4 after that in its entirety in recent times. And then, of course, everything after that I haven't except for Hardwired. Yeah. So there was a good chunk of this, that was like a refresher. And then when you listen to everything in a row, like how they never had an album that sounded like another album. Yeah. That makes sense. They're one of those bands that progressed every single album, whether it was to something you liked or not. But even from Kill 'Em All to the first of Ride the Lightning, you can tell the difference. Exactly. And it's like Ride the Lightning, they went in that more epic route from where they were just like this straight up balls out thrash band. And then from Ride the Lightning to Master of Puppets, it became this grand, epic thrash thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like you said, no, each album sounds different. And it's, I was thinking about this earlier and, what I was going to say. And that's really right on the money. It kind of echoes what I was going to say. It all sounds like Metallica, but each one is different. Obviously on the later stuff, it's way different. But even though it's like those first 4 or 5 records are they're so unique to themselves, but it still sounds like Metallica. And it's each one of those albums is just a perfect blueprint. It's just, Metallica is one of those bands like, the big guys, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, that, these are the bands that are like, showing you how to do it. And that's what I really took from the first 4 or 5 records. I thought that was really cool. And it's like, I kind of always knew that obviously, but just going through them completely, because I haven't done that in years, it just really, really drove that home. And it was just a really cool process to see. Yeah.
More so now, you always knew that the Black Album sounded different than everything before it, not just production wise, but they did make that change, but I guess we were young enough that we weren't in that group of people that it pissed off,
Yeah.
That was like the older generation that got butthurt, kind of like we did with Load to an extent. Not as much, I guess, but trying to say is when you listen to those 4 albums and then the Black Album right after it, it's way more evident why I could see if I was one of those guys that grew up with Metallica from the day that Kill 'Em All came out, I might have been a little pissed.
Yeah, because, definitely.
You listen to some, I love the Black Album. I have no problem admitting it. I like every single song on that album. Big difference between, at least 10 of those songs compared to anything earlier.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
But then another thing that jumped out at me on those first albums was, I've listened to stuff off of Injustice for All millions of times over the last many years, and we've all talked about the production on that album.
Yeah.
But people whine about how Lars's drums sounded on Saint Anger. That fucking snare drum on All is as bad as Saint Anger. I'll say it right here. I don't give a shit.
It is. I mean, that you're right. You're right.
And people talked about the lack of bass, but I'm like, that snare drum is driving me crazy.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, and that brings up a great point. And really, the whole album's pretty thin. I mean, it's great. It's great songs, great riffs, like insane riffs. We know that.
It's so great. Like the album, in its entirety is fucking great.
Yeah. But yeah, the production, and sometimes it sounds pretty tinny, you know? And, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to go back and change anything. So
you got to wonder whenever, because they did the Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning reissues with the remasters.
Yeah.
So the big thing I'm sure everybody's wondering is when they get to Justice, turn the bass up, what everybody wants them to do, or do you think they're just going to leave it the same but just make it a little thicker sounding?
We shall see. There was just a quote. There's a quote in all the websites just a couple days ago from James saying, you look back on it and there probably should have been bass, or that snare on Saint Anger did sound like shit. But he also did stress that, it's a picture in time and all that blah, 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 blah. And why would you change it? It shows where we were at the time, all this kind of stuff. So
as annoying as I thought the snare drum on the majority of that album and Justice for All was, it doesn't stop me from wanting to listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like the end of the world or anything.
Exactly. I totally agree.
To reiterate, it's really cool to hear those all in a row, just to hear that progression on the classic stuff.
Yeah.
Even, because everybody talks about they changed later. I mean, they were changing that whole time.
Yeah. And on like the Black Album, one thing that kind of just stuck with me going back over it is, a lot of those songs I haven't heard in a long time, because whenever I see something that says Inner Sandman or Sad But True or Nothing Else Matters, I just skip.
Right.
Because, God, I've heard those songs. They're great songs. I've heard them a million times. I won't hear them anymore.
Yeah.
But I just was like, I'm going to listen to this. And I let it take me back to 1992 when I was a kid. And, you have to forget, not these songs' fault that they're so overplayed.
Right.
It's not these songs' fault that, they're so huge. You just have to go back, start, and just, appreciate each one of them for just being fucking great.
Yeah.
And try to forget that you've heard it on the radio 8 million times.
But it's like that album, you think of huge albums that had a ton of radio hits, like Appetite for Destruction or Hysteria.
Yeah.
Where when you take all the songs that weren't radio hits that are just fucking amazing, that's how that album is. When you look at My Friend of Misery, The God That Fell, Through the Never, The Struggle Within, of Wolf and Man, those are like the best songs on this album.
They sure are. I'm going to tell you something. My Friend of Misery, The God That Failed, Struggle Within, the best last 3 songs on a record ever, of anyone ever.
Wow. I'd have to think about that to see if I could.
I'm calling it now. Those are 3 just insane songs. I mean, I wish they played those songs more.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fantastic.
And didn't Newstead write My Friend of Misery?
Yeah, I think he helped write that. Yeah.
See, that goes to show they should have let him do more.
I know. What the hell? He might have still been in there, man.
Right. Well, so the next step after those 5 albums is Load.
Yeah.
And I've said a million times that when that came out, I was like 95% of people, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
I was so pissed off. I didn't hate it, but I was just mad. And because they didn't sound like I thought they should sound, which, who's to say that I'm in charge of anything, right? Or anybody else. But I always thought back then, even, pretty early on, that if this had been some band I never heard of, I would think they were amazing.
Yeah.
And so I like the album, and I still do. But I haven't listened to it in its entirety in quite a long time. And listening to it again, I almost move it from liking it to loving it now.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? What made you?
I don't know. Just
move up that much.
I knew all the songs. It's Reload, and when we get to Reload, which is where I hadn't listened since probably back then. Yeah. And forgot half those songs because I hadn't listened to them. So on Load, I remember most of them. But just hearing them all together and taking it, and just listening to it as music, not as master of puppets, it's good music. And the it's got all those groovy riffs, which I've always loved bands that, have that groove and that, kind of swagger kind of thing.
Definitely.
And, the solos, even on Reload, both those albums, he's playing all these bluesy solos that are just badass, and they're totally different from all the stuff he did before and even since. I don't know. I just like it way more than I remember liking it, because I just, like I said, I've only listened to songs here and there. Like I'll listen to Wasting My Hate once every 2 weeks still to this day because I fucking love it. But like every other song on there, I'm just kind of like, if I hear it, I hear it. If not, I'm not. But it's a totally different story, but I don't know what you have to say about Load.
Well, I mean, what you're saying, with solos and stuff, that's just one more thing that kind of shows how, I mean, they're true artists, and they're metal, but still pull it off, with, trying different things. And, I look at Load and Reload kind of as one thing, because I know it was all recorded at the same time, I'm pretty sure. And, but, I do like Load a little bit better than Reload. But, and I've said this to you, I've said it on the podcast a million times. I've said it for 20 years. Everyone always, it's just because Until It Sleeps was like the first single out there that everyone heard. Yeah. That gave everyone that little.
I still don't like that song, by the way.
Yeah.
That's
my least favorite song. It's probably my least favorite song. Yeah, definitely. Everyone was like, oh, they went alternative. Well, no, they fucking didn't. Half a brain and listen to the whole album. They kind of went more blues. They kind of went hard rock. They didn't go alternative. And if you still say that, then you're a dipshit.
You're basing it off of some eyeliner.
Yeah, exactly.
Feather boa picture.
Yeah, you're basing it off some stupid video. And I mean, it's easy to go to that route, but you can't do it. And I just think that, like, Hero of the Day is great. I think it's just so different. And maybe it's not them totally, but God, I love that song. It's just fucking epic. And, I think that it kind of makes me, I'd like to hear Bleeding Me with like some Black Album production,
Oh, yeah.
Because, the production on Load and Reload is just a little bit looser and rawer and, funner in a way, if you know what I mean. And I just, I really, it was just their era of just hanging out there and doing something different and weird. And, maybe it didn't seem like the right thing. Maybe it was a little weird, but I think it worked. And I think it helped them get back to where they're at now in a way. So,
and see, so many people talk shit about that, but they go see them live and they're going to sing every word to King Nothing or something.
Yes, exactly.
Or Fuel or whatever.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. They're going to go nuts when, they play, everyone goes nuts when they play Memory Remains and all that kind of stuff, But, kind of some.
They need to play 2x4, by the way.
Yeah, they do. Now, and that's kind of what I was going to go into, is some unsung gems from that era, those two albums, 2x4, Devil's Dance, Prince Charming. God, I love Prince Charming. That's like one song I wish they would play live, and they probably never will.
Right.
But that song is just so underrated and so badass. So yeah, I mean, there's some jewels in there, that people just kind of pass over, I think.
Right. Like that comment that, what if you took the best half of Load and the best half of Reload, put them together, you'd have a really good album. Yeah. But after listening to them back to back, that's not true at all. It's like 85% Load and 15% Reload. Because it's like they record these all at once, but obviously these are the leftovers, in my opinion. I mean, outside of like, I like the Memory Remains, Prince Charming, like you said, Low Man's Lyric, Attitude's pretty cool, Bad Seed's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's like, it's not all killer, no filler by any means.
Yeah. I mean, Where the Wild Things Are.
Right.
I know you want to talk about that.
Anger came out. That was probably their worst thing they ever did.
Yeah. And you know what? Guess who helped write that one? Jason Newsted. So.
Shit.
what you were just talking about a minute ago.
Right.
But, Low Man's Lyric was another one that really struck a chord with me. I love that song.
Yeah.
That's badass.
Another thing that jumped out at me, songs on those two albums, were that a lot of the riffs sounded the same. I noticed when you listen to both those albums together, I keep hearing riffs and I'm like, this sounds like a song I heard 4 songs ago. Like it happened several times. Yeah. So it sounded like they weren't as creative as they could have been in that department.
Yeah.
Good songs. So
yeah. And one more thing, I think on Load, Thorn Within, just throw that song in the goddamn trash can. It's right. Like a Sex Type Thing ripoff, leftover type. And it's like just it's like what Lars' dad said in the movie on all the new stuff. He's like, I would just go ahead and hit delete on that one.
Right.
Just they should have hit delete on that one.
Ronnie, because that used to always be my song as a go-to that I would joke about. Yeah. And that's actually a good song.
It's a great song. Yeah. It's probably like the most different fucking thing they did.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really liked it. It's got a lot of attitude, that's for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of twang.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Reload, then Garage Inc. is next.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the biggest jolt to your system in the whole process of listening to every album in a row is listening to the end of Garage Inc. and the beginning of Saint Anger. Because that's not a great comparison because you're talking about old songs that were recorded. Because the end of Garage Inc. is all the...
Yeah. And
which was that the first half of the second disc? No, because the Motorhead songs were there at the end.
Yeah.
Well, either way. And then the next thing you hear is Frantic. But
I know.
We don't really need to say a lot about Garage Inc. We know it's, for the most part, it's all cool. There's some random stuff on there, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like all their Motorhead stuff. It's their B-sides.
Yeah.
Bread Fan.
The first disc of that was all the new covers,
new covers. That's right. I'm sorry. I don't know. I like the Free Speech for the Dumb and the More I See, those kind of short, kind of punk covers. It's Electric is a great cover.
Yeah.
I never want to hear Turn the Page again. I've heard that a million times. And the Merciful Fate medley is badass. We all know that.
Right. Then of course the second album with So What and Stone Cold Crazy,
Killing Time.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just tried and true. You can't go wrong.
Right.
It's always going to feel good, and it's always going to be there for you.
Yeah. You transition from that into Saint Anger, and that's where
where we just shit the bed, Trent.
Right. So, Saint Anger, as in most people's mind, is their least favorite Metallica album. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. There's people out there that probably love it, but I know that throughout the years, when people are ripping on it, you always defended it to a point. And, I got it like everybody else. I listened to it and then didn't listen to it forever. And then I was trying to remember when it was a long time ago. I listened to it again in its entirety just to give it another shot. And I think it was probably around when Death Magnetic came out. So we're still, we're talking 8 years ago now. And I remember thinking, whatever. So I don't really remember. But whenever I did it this time, and that was a fucking painful journey.
Yeah.
It's just, you keep thinking, okay, the song's almost over. And then, you forget, there's 4 more minutes in this song. Of, crazy bullshit that doesn't need to be here. And then you get to the shorter songs like My World, and they're even fucking worse than the 8-minute long song.
I know. I always did kind of defend it just because it's Metallica and they're my favorite band, and I'll buy anything they do because I'm a dork like that. But I listened to this again, and I like a positive I will give it is, like I've said before, if you watch that movie, you kind of understand it a bit more. I get the chaos of it, but just the production side of it, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking about the stupid fucking snare drum.
Well, yeah,
listen to those guitars. It's just muddy as hell.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Do you guys know how to turn a fucking dial? It's like, come on.
And even some of the vocals, they sound so separated from everything else.
Yeah, and he's just screaming and singing weird shit and weird voices, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? I just it agree listening to it. I think that, and I just you can't pay attention to it because it's just, hey, let's just pile a bunch of shit onto each other,
right?
And make a 12-minute long song, and scream over it,
right?
Which there's bands out there that do that and do it well. Isn't the case here, Trent?
Right.
I think, all in all, I like "Frantic" as a song. That "Frantic" will work. And I always kind of dug the Unnamed Feeling a little bit. Oh, yeah. But other than that, let's just, let's hit delete on all that too. There might be some parts here and there, but
there'll be parts where a riff will be going. I'm like, oh, this is all right. And then all of a sudden that's gone and turned into shit.
Yeah. I don't know.
Because it's like, you think about it, even if that was a Black Album or something, those songs are still not good. It's like,
I know.
There's parts of them that are, and when that band from England, condensed them, took out all the crap and produced it well, and it sounded good. It was still not the greatest thing ever because those songs aren't the greatest thing ever. But so you got to wonder, it's like, this is the same band that continuously wrote songs.
Yeah.
So it's not like they all of a sudden just can't write anymore.
Yeah.
Because we've got albums after this, obviously, that are great.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they just thought, see, we're the biggest band in the world. This is our test to see how much people will really fucking do with. It's almost like maybe it was a joke,
I don't know. It's like, you got to think their management had to be sitting around going, what are we going to tell them? Or fuck, maybe they were in on it.
What they could do now is they should do a 6-city tour where they played St. Anger in its entirety, and they would probably fill the place up because people are fucking.
Yeah.
If they came to Oklahoma City and played St. Anger in its entirety, you would drive there to see them.
Well, you're goddamn right, I would. I know. See, you caught me. You got me. It's just one of those things.
I probably would too, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, but I was listening to our episode that we did, one of the first episodes we did, where we talked about, it was just an all Metallica episode, and Justin, who was on there with us, brought up a good point
from Egotastic Fun Time.
Yes, exactly, and it is egotastic and it is fun. It is, they had a DVD with that CD of them just rehearsing it and playing the whole album in its entirety in their rehearsal room. And it sounded a lot better because it wasn't that stupid fucking snare drum. And their guitars were, should be, more, and it just was a lot better. So that's kind of just an interesting side note.
Well, even when I've seen the times I saw something live, which was, I know in Wichita when we saw them, they played St. Anger, they played Some Kind of Monster, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else, but those songs sound way better live because they're heavy.
Yeah.
They're a little heavier. They're thicker, whatever you want to call it. It sounds like everything else.
Exactly.
Even though it's still
the same equipment and the same sound they're using for when they just played Master of Puppets or whatever.
Right.
I think, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. That's probably one I won't be visiting again.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't see myself ever putting myself through it again.
Yeah, I did it. It's done.
Yeah. And I was listening to it like halfway through. I'm like, I can just skip this and tell Jason I listened to it. But I'm like, no, I'm halfway through this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish this just so I can say that the first 30 minutes that weren't a complete waste.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, before we got into this, we skip the, you mentioned we listened to Human.
Yeah.
And then I Disappear.
Yeah. I really like Minus Human. I think that's a great song. No Leaf Clover is all right. But I like Minus Human better. And I Disappear, from the Mission Impossible soundtrack. I mean, it's okay.
That song and No Leaf Clover both sound just like something that.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think you're right. And I went back on YouTube and listened to their cover of 53rd and 3rd by the Ramones. Because that's not on Garage Inc. because it was later, and that album isn't on Spotify or nothing. And I used to have that Ramones tribute record, and I don't know what happened to it.
Yeah, I wish that was on Spotify or something because I don't know if I think I've got the CD somewhere. I need to pull that out.
Yeah. So I got it all.
Right. So after Saint Anger, then we're in the Death Magnetic.
Yep.
And followed that by Beyond Magnetic, right?
Yes.
Four songs, and that's another thing that if you're listening and you never listen to Beyond Magnetic, you should, because those 4 songs are better than half the songs on Death Magnetic.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they are. They really are. I think. I guess it was. I'm assuming I never really got the whole story, but it had to be like leftovers from the Death Magnetic sessions.
Yeah.
But 4 songs: Hate Train, Just a Bullet Away, Hell and Back, Rebel of Babylon. To me, were much more. All 4 of those songs were hookier and like more focused than Death Magnetic, and the production was just a tad better. But the main thing is more focused. I'm telling you,
right?
It was just more. Death Magnetic, I think, was like, okay, well, pissed everybody off with Saint Anger. We need to go back to just thrashing.
Yeah.
So let's just blow it out.
Yeah.
And it and it did the job. People enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Great songs.
I remember the first time hearing. I can remember the first time I heard several of their songs, like going back to Until It Sleeps or, Saint Anger, and then the song, and then This Was Just Your Life was the first single, right? And it's like, it's with that clean guitar that builds up to something like they did in the 80s on several songs.
Yeah.
So it even kind of harkened back to that, but it's still this for the production of the album in a whole is obviously way better than, but it's not as good as it could have been either.
I know it's a little staticky, isn't it?
Yeah. But that obviously got changed with Hardwired.
Yes.
But I don't know if we want to talk more about Death Magnetic. I'm not jumping.
I just, I think that, like I said, Death Magnetic was great. It was a good return to form, even though it might have been a little frenetic in places. Long-winded, but then again, you had short, badass, just thrashers like My Apocalypse and All Nightmare Long. So I mean, that was a good one. Day That Never Comes was great. It was just a return to their epic kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, you can't knock that one.
The Day That Never Comes was the first single, then, right?
Yes, that was the first single.
This Was Just Your Life. Is the first song.
Gotcha. Yeah, so. Definitely can't say too much bad stuff about that one. And then, when they dropped Beyond Magnetic, like I said, I enjoyed that a lot better. It kind of showed us what was to come.
Right. What was that lyric that always bugged the shit out of me on, and what song? It's like the second or third song on Death Magnetic. Is it the end of the line? What's the song after that? Broken, Beaten, Scarred.
Yeah.
What's that lyric he says in there that's just fucking ridiculous?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, well, never mind. It'll come to me later.
Yeah. It could be anything. There's probably a lot of words in that song, Trent.
Right. Well, he says it a few times, I think. But anyway, now we're up to the current album.
Yeah.
And, kind of like with the last couple, there's this big gap in between them. So they have time to, I guess, think of what they're doing. And we have a full reaction video for this whole album. If you click on our subscribe thing there and listen to some previous stuff if you want to know more about Hardwired. But this wasn't any kind of revelation because both of us have listened to this in its entirety quite recently.
Yes.
Because it just came out a few months ago. And it's cool to hear, that they kind of combined everything from all this previous stuff that we just listened to.
You're right. You're totally right.
I mean, you hear all the elements of, Ride the Lightning and A Justice for All, the Black Album, Load. There's thrash stuff. There's, those kind of mid-tempo metal songs that they're good at, like the Sad But True type stuff with like Murder One and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And they didn't really do a lot of that on Death Magnetic. So that's kind of what I was saying. And, it's just a good full circle point. And it's just it's cool to just see, well, this is where they've come. This is where they've landed after, probably 35 years or something almost. Yeah.
If you didn't listen to anything in between and you listened to Hit the Lights and then Spit Out the Bone, and the voice is different, the sound is different, but they're not really that far removed from each other because they're both just like fucking balls out metal songs.
Exactly. I kind of think like if you went back in time to like 83 and played them Spit Out the Bone, okay, all right.
Yeah, but then we did it, guys.
But then if you like went and played them like Thorn Within, you might run into some problems.
Cliff would still be alive because he would have murdered everybody.
Oh man, you never know. It's just I'm excited to kind of see what band we're going to do next and kind of see how these bands have evolved. It's interesting.
Well, one other thing I want to say is I thought about if you did like a short form of this where you just took the first track off of every album and listened to them in a row. Every song is a good album and era, except maybe Fuel, because that's most of the songs on that album, I think. Yeah. But every other first song is very indicative of what else is to come after.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And they always have great lead-off tracks for the most part, outside of maybe Ain't My Bitch, because there's better songs after that. But
we'll make a CD. Mixtape.
Right. But we Megadeth. I know you already started it, so I don't know if that's what we're going to do next.
Yeah, I think I'm on. System has failed.
Oh wow, you're deep into it then.
Yeah, I ain't messing around.
Yeah. So I think that would be a little more.
It's a little.
It wouldn't be as drastic with them until you get to. You notice that change.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But the late 90s, it's when it kind of changes big, and then they have their kind of hills and valleys after that. But
exactly.
I think it'd be real interesting to do. You see, just to hear, because everybody always makes that joke about how, if it's not broke, and because everything sounds the same, it'd be really cool to listen to them from beginning to end, just to see if you notice some. I mean, obviously you're going to notice a progression, a little bit, but it'd just be cool to hear, I think.
And maybe that might be like the shortest one we do. It might be a couple minutes.
Yeah,
well, it's AC/DC. You know what you're getting. See you later.
Right.
Or there might be some surprises. You never know.
Yeah, that's true.
But
we do know we're going to do Megadeth. We're going to do Guns N' Roses and Pantera. Those are the ones we talked about. I'm sure we'll hear more, probably AC/DC, Kiss.
Definitely.
Yeah, maybe Def Leppard if I can talk into that.
Hey, I'll do it. I'll do any of them. Metallica, I owe you one.
Yeah, we should do. Who's a band that's got like 2 albums?
Oh God,
we could do Blind Melon. They only had 3 albums.
What we should, what we should do? Let's do bands we both hate.
Who would that be?
Just to torture ourselves and talk about it.
Right. Yeah, just to see if you can find stuff to like.
Yeah, like we listen to every Bush album.
Right.
We'll
we could do Bush, Linkin Park.
Jesus Christ.
Nickelback.
No, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll quit. You can go fucking do this with somebody else, damn it.
All right.
No Nickelback.
There you go, our Metallica every album in a row that we recorded late February of 2017. That was the first every album in a row that we had done. Hopefully it wasn't too corny. Hopefully it was decent. I think it was.
I think it was.
From what I remember.
I've got faith in ourselves.
Right. But yeah, like we mentioned, Metallica is Jason's favorite band, so that's kind of why we started with them and started doing this in the first place.
Yes.
And then we did Guns N' Roses shortly after because that's my favorite band.
Yes.
And we just went through all the stuff we love as well, like Megadeth and Ozzy and Van Halen and Motley Crue, Pantera. Yeah. And we've got, tons of the big ones we want to get to, like, your Def Leppard and Aerosmith, Black Sabbath, Tesla, AC/DC. Then there's stuff that's not as huge as that we've talked about, like Life of Agony and Ugly Kid Joe.
Yeah.
The more underrated bands we love.
Yes.
But speaking of, like after we did that one with CJ, Travis Davis from Claim Your Enemy contacted me and said, I assume at some point, hopefully you guys are going to do AC/DC.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I would love to.
We'll have to have him because he's a...
It's kind of like with CJ with Kiss.
Gigantic AC. Yeah. Man, that's going to be... That's a...
That'd be an undertaking as well.
Yes, it would be.
But that would be another fun one.
We'll definitely do it. But, Metallica, and, they announced their North American tour. We're going to 2 of them.
Right.
It's going to be awesome.
Well, and another thing to mention is we saw Metallica after. We recorded this originally.
Saw them in Dallas.
Dallas last June. Fantastic show there at the Cowboy Stadium. Huge stadium show with Avenged Sevenfold and Local H opening up.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And then now, they, like you said, they announced the North American tour. And we got tickets for the Tulsa show and the Kansas City show. So if anybody out there is going to either of those,
let us know.
Yeah, hit us up.
Yeah.
But that's that's freaking 8-9 months from now for Tulsa, and then
a year for Kansas City.
Yeah.
But we're thinking of like trying to do some kind of get together for the Tulsa one.
That's true.
Somewhere. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so, because I know Metal Up Your Podcast I think they're probably doing a get together in Nashville.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's other places where people are doing this. So.
Yeah. And, that could totally be a carbon copy move from us, but who cares? It's a great idea.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna look into it.
Definitely. And there's probably other shows here coming up on these big shows we could probably do that with if we wanted to as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, yeah, we appreciate you listening to this. Like I mentioned, all those other ones are on YouTube at The Thunder Underground. Head to soundcloud.com/Thunder-Underground or iTunes or our website, thethunderunderground.com. Anywhere podcasts are heard, you can check out all our previous stuff. We mentioned Megadeth earlier. Dave Elfson was on here a while back. Chris Broderick was on here earlier on. We've had on guys we mentioned Kiss. Gene Simmons and Bruce Kulick have both been on here.
That's awesome.
Guys from Seven Dust, Shinedown, Warrant, Europe, Firehouse Trickster. We love our glam metal.
We do.
We've had on some heavy stuff like Death Angel,
Sid
Falk. Yeah, Battlecross.
Yeah, Sid Falk from Overkill, yeah.
He was on here early, 2-part episode. Real great one if you love thrash metal. You love Sid Falk. You definitely need to check that out. The list goes on and on. COC, Shooter Jennings. So just get back through there, dig through it, and listen to some of this other stuff.
Definitely. Sid Falk's awesome. He always likes my dog pictures on Instagram.
That's true.
Of my hound dog.
Because he is definitely a dog guy.
Yes.
Because he's got some great dogs of his own.
Definitely.
So yeah, there you go. Until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.